Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Marc Reifenrath, who is the CEO and co founder of Spinutech, a full service digital marketing agency with over 150 team members across the US. And I'm looking forward to speaking with Marc today. Marc, welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat and hopefully it makes people better today.
Yeah. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the origin story? Because I hear it started in a dorm room or something.
Yeah, so I was a junior in college, University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls, Iowa. So small town Iowa, relatively speaking. Myself, a childhood friend, and a college buddy. The market for jobs wasn't great in 2000, and so we thought a great resume builder would be to start a business. We did not have any really knowledge of running a business, but we put our noses down and worked hard and grinded and put ourselves in position to get lucky occasionally. I say put yourself in position because I don't luck happens when you're consistently in the right places. And we did that, and it was slow growth with some rapid growth over the last 5 to 7 years.
Okay. I mean, that's encouraging because I know that sometimes when you're first starting a business out, some people are able to just kind of hit the ground running and they go so fast right out the gate. But it sounds like you really kind of built things and then it got like maybe more like a snowball kind of effect. Is that kind of what you would how you would
Yeah.
describe it?
And I think, if we started a business, I mean, when I was in college, we didn't have a Rolodex of business owners or business contacts. We didn't know how to play the game. We didn't know how to play the politics. We didn't know how to price what we were selling. Like there was so many things we just didn't know. So if I started a business today, I think sure, year one would be way easier to achieve what we did in the first probably 5 years collectively, because of that just baseline of context and understanding. So yeah, we learned a lot of things the hard way, but I think that the MBA that I got on the street of business is worth way more because we had to figure it out to survive. And we went through a lot of we didn't pay ourselves for the first several years. We didn't take on outside funding. The business incubators weren't around, so we did figure out a lot of things. But I would say we also surround ourselves as we met people that were impactful to us or willing to invest in us. We built those relationships and kind of had a small, very informal board of directors, not in the sense of any formality to it. Just like I would call this person for some legal questions, or this person for insurance or banking, and what would you do with this situation, or just taking them to lunch and hearing them talk. You can. I think being a sponge, it was a very important part of the growth to just understand one, we didn't know it all, and there was a lot of people that had been there and done that, and we should talk to them and just try to learn as much from them as we could.
Hmm. Sounds like you had a nice little group of mentors.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. There wasn't like one. I think a lot of people have one. I would say for me personally, I probably had like five that I would kind of consistently go to for various things. And I don't know if I would have called them mentors at the time, but looking back, they absolutely were, and couldn't thank them enough for pouring into me, especially for how green and young we were at the time.
So you're a co-founder. Can you tell me a little bit about working together with somebody else on this front end? And is the other person still involved with the company today? How does that work?
Yeah, so fast forward to today, we actually have four partners. So we did a merger at the beginning of 21. And so there's four today. So the original three of us, and then a new one, Kevin, who's our president. So yeah, I mean, I think those dynamics shift over time. In the beginning, there's three of us and we want to build websites is what we started doing. And so I was kind of the salesperson, kind of the designer, kind of this, kind of take out the trash, a
Yep.
little bit of everything. And I think over time, we've slowly kind of fell into our lanes and our roles. And that is what ignited maybe the first kind of growth spurt. There's different kind of growth patterns that you see in the start of a business. And once we found our lanes and kind of what we were confident in, that really helped things. And then over time, you kind of build off of that. And we actually started another business in 2008-ish, that the two of them kind of took over and ran full time. So I hear a lot of horror stories of partners and how that goes. You know, Generally speaking, a very good experience for us. Have we had our disagreements? Sure. I think that's very natural, but there was until the merger, there was very much a three-legged stool approach, and simple rule of we try to not leave a room without a unified decision. Didn't mean that we all agreed with the decision, but we at least left unified, so that we weren't having inconsistencies to the teams and that, support, subconsciously.
Mm. And when you said that you kind of found your lanes as you kept going, um, was there any rhyme or reason to how you found those lanes, or did it just sort of fall into place? Like, oh my goodness, I think I'm really good at this. You're really good at this. That sort of thing.
I think it was pretty organic for the most part. We definitely, I think, in that, kind of survival mentality, you're gonna drift towards where you're naturally best at. Where's the easiest food to get mentality, and so I'm pretty good at building relationships and not afraid to ask for the sale or ask for whatever it is we want. And so, um, for me, I think it was just an evolution of probably me growing up as an adult business person, kind of falling into the pattern of what my strengths were. I don't know if I could have wrote those down in the beginning, but and those things change over time. I've had to evolve as a leader. Leading, a company of 10 people versus 170 is very different. And so there's been, I would say, several versions of my approach and leadership styles over the past 20, almost 23 years now. We're days away from being 23 years. So that's a interesting reflection point to understand um, the challenge that presents yourself. And it's delegating, it's understanding when you're leading a team of 50, everybody very intimately. When you get to 75 to 100, there starts to be a group of people that you don't interact with as much, not intentionally. It's just the nature of what your day to day runs. At 170 and in a fully remote environment, pretty much, there's a lot more people I don't touch on a regular basis, which can drive me nuts at times, but it just challenged, okay, I've got to really pour into the leaders that are closest to me
Mm.
and let their cups overflow, so on and so forth. And so it's just an evolution, and it's kind of a fun journey. I think I'm a lifelong learner. One of our first core values, we get better every day. And so if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, or you're not growing, you're dying. And I think I've really applied that to myself as well and try to strive to be the best leader I can be. I feel a immense amount of responsibility to lead this team in the best way possible.
What do you think one of your biggest growth points has been for your own leadership?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm sure others would be able to point things out. Like, you used to
You've
really be
got a
bad
you've
at
got
this.
a journey to look back on, so I recognize that
Yeah.
maybe you'll just pull out something. It doesn't have
So,
to be the
I
perfect
mean,
answer.
I think that communication, I'm definitely a visionary. I have big ideas. I have a lot of ideas. A lot of them are bad. But when we have the vision that is really aligned and working, in the beginning, it was easier because people just felt it. You didn't have to speak it as much.
Yeah.
Bigger you get, you have to communicate it. And this is something I'm currently kind of learning another layer of. And so heading into 23, we are really pounding some of this stuff, and it's going to be in every one-on-one. It's just going to be the thread of the theme of 23 to really get everybody aligned. And we've had a lot of things the last couple of years that have complicated and compounded the complexity of that. And so I've learned, one, you have to say things repetitively, where maybe when you're a smaller team, you say it once and it's like, okay, everybody heard it. We're good. Now I've got to say it a lot and in different ways. And then more importantly, I have to say what it isn't. People are filling the gaps a lot right now with, unfortunately, not positive things. Just Society is pushing us to assume the absolute worst in those
Mhm.
scenarios. And so when you said this, are we going to do layoffs in 2 months? Like, what? How did you jump to that? Like, no, absolutely not. Like, oh my gosh. And one thing that's kind of interesting is we are not renewing two of our leases. So we currently have 5 locations. Actually, we have 4 today because end of November, Denver was formerly, we didn't renew the lease and we shut that office down, transitioned just to WeWork space, being more flexible. When we announced that to the team, this is where my learnings came into play. Instead of just saying, hey, we're closing offices, here's why, and leaving it at that, I went on to say, now, to be very clear, this is what it's not. This does not mean we're failing. We didn't lose in any category. We're just changing the plays we're running for the game that is being played today. The team desires a different way to work. We're going to do that for you all to meet your needs. We want to meet you where you want to work. We went 30 plus days in that office where nobody came into the office. but the rent still has to be paid. The electricity still has to be paid, internet bill, stuff, insurance, all those things. So we're going to put a lot of money back into the team to, I would say, invest, get ROI on the culture in a different way in 23 and beyond.
That's really interesting because I think it's so hard to take the perspective of the people you're speaking to, but to kind of realize that, oh gosh, they're if they hear this, what are they actually hearing? How are
Hmm.
they going to interpret that or could potentially interpret that? So what do I need to cover on the front end to make sure that I don't? I mean, that's a tough little game to play. And it takes extra time and energy and all that.
Yes. I mean, I think the thing for all of us to learn as leaders, company leaders, owners, whatever it is, the game got harder. Leadership is way harder than it was in 2019.
Hmm.
And I've been on this big push of you have to lead the whole person, not just the business person,
Yeah,
because our lives got thrown in a blender, middle of March of 20. And that just changed for leadership. And there's leaders currently trying to revert to old habits because they're fearful. They don't like some of the things that are going on and they don't know how to handle it. And when we get fearful, we get pushed in a corner, we go to old bad habits. We've got to stop doing that. And we've got to, like I said, meet the team where they're at, but also like, hey, Andrea, did you have a rough morning? Yeah, my kid threw up before I went to school and it made me late. And what can I do to help you today? Is there a meeting I can take off your books? What can I do as a leader to help support you? And sometimes it's just being an ear to listen. Sometimes I need to be vulnerable and say, yeah, my morning sucked too. My kid, put his pants on backwards. Right. I noticed it in the car. We had to turn, like, whatever it is. They forgot their stocking cap. The school just called. I mean, these are real things that happen. Right. And
absolutely.
so it's understanding that sometimes life is going to get in the way of work and sometimes work gets in the way of life. But as a leader, we've got to help and support all those things. At Spinutech, we care about, are you getting your work done? And that's pretty much it. And that doesn't mean 8 to 5. That might mean that as a mom, you start at 5 and work till 7 and you get the kids ready and you pop back on at 9. Get the stuff done. Don't have it be disruptive to your teammates or to your clients. And we've got no problems.
Mm.
People still trying to lock into old ways and logic, that's going to push people away and really stunt your growth, stunt the individual's growth, the company's growth, all those things.
So when it comes to having a team that is, oh, it's across different locations. Perhaps some sounds like quite a few people are might be remote. Talk to me about culture. How do you
Yeah.
do that? How do you, continue, especially when it comes to onboarding too?
Yes. These are softballs for me. So we care a lot about culture. We care a lot about the onboarding process. So, um, number one, we hire based on culture first. So if you're not a good culture fit, you can have all the talent in the world. We're not going to hire you. The onboarding process really kind of technically starts with that interview process, but we do have a first 100 days program. So it comes down to what equipment you're getting to be ready for day one of work, getting paperwork to you ahead of day one of work. Day one is really that start of onboarding with the team. It's a lot of different meetings with introductions to different teams. I ideally on day one will meet with you and do a cultural and core values overview. And I do that because I heard from a great leader, Craig Rochelle. If it's important to you, it should come from you. And I took that to heart and was like, man, I really care about these things. And so, in order to have a lived set of core values and a lived culture, I think they do need to hear it from me and why I care about it so much. And it will make way more sense to them as they progress down the road. We do surveys pretty much every 15 days of how the experience is going. There's different touch bases, meetings, trainings, all those things to really get them integrated. We have a mentor for your first year. So somebody who's been here, I believe it's at least 1 year, if not more than two. It's their go-to person. Like, hey, where do I go for this, or who would I ask for this? Because those are hard questions to ask. It's intimidating, especially in this environment. The challenge I give to every team member in this environment is, listen, we have an amazing onboarding process. But what is really going to make it even better is you have to lean in way harder than any other onboarding experience you've done in the past. I know our team will do everything we can. And now that you're a part of it, what are you going to do to go above and beyond? Setting up a random virtual coffee or eating a meal with somebody virtually, which I know is weird, but those are the things you would have done in an office to get to know Andrea and talk about her family or what she enjoys outside of work and so on. when we know each other on a deeper level and we go to battle with our clients on meetings and not battle in a very funny way, I need to know what Andrea's stress points are. Where do I need to jump in and help her and cover for her or I'm gonna set her up because I know she's really good at this. And we just kind of have that cadence where it's like, boom, she just jumps in right when she knows and it like doesn't miss a beat. We don't know that when we don't truly know who we're working with. And so the culture, it has changed as far as how the game is played. We've done pretty well adapting to this new virtual environment. It is harder though, but we've invested a lot of time and dollars into it. So we have one individual, she's dedicated pretty much to the growth of our team and the engagement of our team. I will say, on the DEI topic, the I, inclusion, for me is the biggest concern because it's also the one that we have the most control over. It is so easy right now for people to fall into the background. And so while we have done everything in our power to attract a great and talented, diverse group of individuals, we get them here, but then for whatever reason, they're a little quieter, a little bit more shy. And it's just like, I'm not going to go to that event. And does somebody notice? Are we providing the variety of events that will attract everybody to join them? So to me, that's like, I'm very concerned about that one right now because it's the one in our control that we can easily have a predictable and hopefully controllable outcome on. But it takes an engaged team member as well. And so that's why we have to really foster like, hey, like, what is your thing? What are the types of things that you lean into? So we've done support groups for different things. Like we have a lot of adoptive parents. I'm an adoptive parent. And so that's a journey. I understand that. And so, where can those individuals go to with other teammates to relate on that? And that's something you can relate on a more human level. And so it's a lot of effort. It's again, all this stuff is harder. It is way harder. And mental health and all these issues have gotten so much louder in the last 2.5 years. And again, I think there's leaders that are kind of like, I'm just going to ignore it. If I don't talk about it, if I don't address it, then it's just not real. It's
Yeah.
very real. It's very present. And it's for now, it is what it is. And so again, we as leaders, we got to be very human and meet that person where they're at and try to support them on as many levels as we can. And I love saying, like, and knowing you're from Nebraska, hey, how are you doing? Your immediate response without even thinking is going to be, oh, I'm doing great. How are you? I'm good too. Great. All right. See ya. I mean, that's the Walmart, that's the grocery store interaction that is 99% of the time. But did I really ask how you're doing? Did I really
Exactly.
care about how you're doing? So I encourage our team members when they start a one-on-one, hey, how are you doing? And I really it's a raw question. Like, yeah, this morning it sucked. My kid puked. I had to change their clothes and then get him to school and there was a snowstorm and blah blah blah. Or school got canceled because of the snowstorm and I don't have all their presents and blah. Yeah, that's a storm that's gonna happen in life. And so like we just have to be raw as leaders and as team members. And I think that will help us all. But if somebody's not talking and they're not saying those things, and this just repetitively is happening in the news, unfortunately, there's not good news coming about a lot of these categories. And so we have to make sure that, I never want to be the person that said, gosh, I should have asked, I should have said something. And so as leaders, that is a new responsibility that I think we've got to take on and ensure that we're doing the best we can to foster that culture and be the leader of ensuring that it's happening too.
Mm. So many really good points. You know, the the thing about when people ask that question, "How are you doing?" I mean, I remember back in junior high being so highly annoyed by hearing everybody would say just fine. I'm fine or I'm great, whatever. And I was like, that's not a real question. We need to
Yeah.
stop asking that question because it seemed like it was fostering like people being fake. And then and now when one of our models, we talk about opportunity. You have to give people an opportunity to speak. And
Hmm.
it's not a real opportunity if it's not a real question. Like you were just saying, like it's not a real opportunity unless you actually turn it into a real opportunity for
Hmm.
that other person to
Hmm.
truly respond. I think that's so, so important. Now you mentioned also mental health. This is something that I keep hearing from CEOs as well. That just, I mean, we have a lot of concerns and a lot of people, it's hitting people hard. Can you share with us, like, w- is there anything that you're doing with mental health right now for your team? Is there what are you seeing or what are you thinking about when it comes to
Yeah.
that?
So let's rewind to during the pandemic, like when this really started to rear its head. One thing I realize is, okay, there's people are stressed out about a lot of things right now. If I look at that list of things, what do I have in my power to remove from
Mm.
their stress table? Return to office. Okay. Hey, team, we're not going to talk about that until July 1st. Hey, team, we're not going to talk about that until September 1st. Hey, team, we're not going to talk about it until the end of the year. November. Hey, team, we're not going to talk about it until we talk about it. This is the way it is until it isn't. Oh,
Wow.
okay. Um, August, middle of August. Hey, parents who have kids returning to school this fall, let's talk about it. Okay. Got on a Zoom call like this, brought everybody together. All right, here's the deal. Get your work done. I don't care about the schedule. I get it's going to be crazy. It's going to be an adjustment. Your number one job as a parent, your number two job is here. Always remind yourself, like, look in the mirror and say that. And then it's okay. Don't apologize for any of those. Don't apologize for life.
Uh,
It happens.
yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
so just getting in all those scenarios, and there was many more, everybody to be like, oh, okay, I don't have that's off my chest now. I don't have to worry about it. I the leader is in control of that. And so by harboring and saying, we're probably going to go back now. We're probably going to go back now. Well, I want to go back. I don't want to go back. I'm afraid to go back. I don't like, surveys were lies. Like people did not accurately answer any survey about returning to an office. Okay. That fall, I asked one of my friends who is a high school guidance counselor to do a meeting with our team and just say, here's what kids are thinking about and feeling. Here's what parents' actions and feelings are portraying or how they're going to interpret it. So that was really great. We brought in somebody from NAMI to talk to the team. So those are like things, a few examples of what we've done. We do brain breaks. We encourage, some walking Wednesdays, different things like that to get outside. Um, as part of our benefits package, they do have a resource that they can reach out to for mental health as well. I think we need to do a better job of reminding people constantly of that. And it is, in my opinion, it is underutilized when we look at the stats and how much that gets used.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the how are you doing? It's people are still afraid to talk about this. So I think as an organization, us normalizing the acceptance of this being a problem, just like a common cold,
Yes. Yeah.
like and that sounds bizarre to say, but I think that we have to give permission for it to be okay to everybody. And I think that starts with me. I think that, me saying this right now, hopefully some of the team members hear that or other leaders hear that. And it just starts that slow butterfly effect of somebody going, I can talk to my leader about this. Like it's okay. And that may mean that they're no longer going to be a team member at Spinutech because it's for whatever reason we're causing part of the problem. But that's okay. Again, that's not their number one job.
Mm.
Like your health in that scenario, your health is your number one concern. And so um, you know, we don't save lives at Spinutech with what we do as far as our service and delivery. We're really good at lead generation for our clients. But if our team isn't in a good spot, like we're not going to deliver great lead gen for our clients. So I think manufacturing companies, what do they invest a ton in maintenance wise? Their equipment. Well, that's their biggest asset too. Our biggest asset, and I don't mean this in a demeaning way at all, is it's our humans. It's our human capital. And so we need them to be functioning at the highest level possible and to continue to grow and get better and be happy personally, professionally. My goal with everybody when they come at Spinutech is to be the best version of themselves holistically, not just work. Like I hope you grew as an individual. You got better, like you became a better human and a better teammate and worker and grew with your knowledge and expanded.
Mm. Oh, that's so encouraging to hear you speak with such conviction on these things. I think it's so important, and not only just the conviction, but also the fact that you've been able to implement quite a few of these practices so that they are making a difference. I'm sure that you're always looking for the next thing to add to the list, but um, I know that there's a lot of CEOs that are trying to figure this out too. They're doing things, and it's just an encouraging thing to see that you guys are doing
Yes.
this well.
One more
So
thing I'll add on that
yeah,
topic
yeah.
of like how we're addressing current situation. So, a lot of questions from our team on, you know, what does this holiday mean to Spinutech? Are we taking this holiday off? Are we not? And there's a lot more of those that are not corporately recognized in America. And so instead of trying to solve that problem across the board, we just said, hey, here's two floating holidays because what I celebrate versus what somebody else, could be very different. And so instead of just trying to that's hard to solve as a business for all of those. That's a lot more days. But our solution was, hey, here's two floating holidays. Use them when you want to. And we came up with some loose parameters on that. And now if somebody wants to celebrate whatever that is, that's fine. That's totally cool. And hopefully that makes them feel appreciated for their heritage, their
Yeah.
beliefs, whatever, and not conforming to just the corporate calendar, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's talk more about your business. So what do you think has been one of the biggest factors in your company's success?
I think we continue to evolve and change. Like I said, we started out as a web dev design shop, and now we do everything from paid search, SEO, conversion rate optimization. I mean, we're lead gen experts. So there's a that digital toolkit or bucket, that's what we do to drive leads and traffic to your sites. And we still build great websites. But when we started, we weren't doing all those things. And so evolving to where the market was shifting and kind of becoming that full service digital agency, that took a long time to do. But had we not done some of those changes along the way, adapting to what the market wanted and where some of the dollars were, we could have died a slow death if we just held out on being a web dev shop. That space got very commoditized, and so we kind of had to go up market and change our offerings and things like that. So I think what we've done a good job of, simply put, is just evolving as a company to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could geek out on you about, some of the AI stuff that's going on right now. Like it's
Geek
super
out.
incredible. So I do a weekly video every Friday to our team. And I went to Chat GPT-3 and I created a script. And all I put in was like CEO of digital marketing company of 170 people, motivational speech, and I let it kick it out. And they probably could tell I was reading it, but I put that on my screen behind my phone where I record it. And I read that. And I said, by the way, everything I just said was from AI, from
Yeah.
ChatGPT. And then I went further and I challenged the team, how do we integrate that more and more into what we do? Then I went to LinkedIn and I created a post from it of what I should say about why it should be part of your tech stack, and posted it and said, PS, this is generated from that. So I think that those things are going to revolutionize marketing. Marketing is probably one of the ripest areas to use that. So there's going to be some easy wins for our clients to be had in how we adapt these tools. Long term, I truly believe for us, owning strategy and being the strategic thinkers and leaders is exactly where we will continue to win and succeed. But again, that's another evolution. It's an adaptation to what the market and how the game is being played. Data is changing it. So that's exciting for me, though. I think that it's a really cool time for digital marketing and the future of what companies like ours are doing. And I think our clients feel that passion, and that's why they desire to work with us, because they're like, it's hard to put a finger on exactly what, but I like the feeling and the vibe I'm getting from that, because they're going to take care of us and keep us on that leading edge of what we're doing.
Okay, so if we're gonna geek out on this, I've got another question.
Yep.
um, so one of our core values has to do with personal agency. Each person being able to have choice, and make a difference, be able
Hmm.
to have an impact on things. One of my biggest concerns with AI and algorithms is the assumption of we know what you want.
Hmm.
And so I know that there is a lot of potential for unhealthy influence in that space then.
Yeah.
And my question is for the industry is how do companies still help people to have choice? How do we, instead of hypnotizing them and bringing them down a path where they don't, where they just they think that they're making their decision, but maybe they really aren't. Can you talk to this? Because this has been a concern of mine for a few years. I've been trying to figure out how do we
Yes.
encourage this? Get them to stop or something in the middle of it and say, okay, now what do you really think? Kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, yeah, that self development and self thinking is going to be like, that's going to become a bigger thing. And then also, like, how do you remove existing bias in AI? Like, so
Yeah,
if AI is being built on everything that's out on the web, is there a subconscious bias that exists in the way that I've written
absolutely.
unknowingly? And that then gets baked into it. And we have the same biases that in AI that exists in society as opposed to trying to make it not biased. So, and then any opinion based things or political things, like what side does it take? From an AI's perspective, there isn't a right side. There should be a neutral side to present all the facts. But what is fact? What is so? I think that it'll be interesting to see what governance, what controls are put in place. Um, I mean, I'm in some peer groups with YPO and all agencies, and there was people freaking out about this type of stuff. That you can make images and stuff, and I just said, my perspective would be this. Henry Ford was a disruptor. He changed the way that the auto industry manufactured, and that was a big deal. And people probably freaked out about that. And then in the 70s and 80s, robots came in and started to replace humans for the manufacturing side. The one consistent theme there, though, was quality of engineering. And while engineering could maybe be done by AI, it will still take context from a human. What do you actually want?
Yeah,
Because you live in the middle of Nebraska and I live in the country, or you live in Chicago and downtown. The context of that might be harder for AI today to understand. And so that's why I go back to, we need to own the strategy. Auto, they need to own the engineering and make the engineering the best as possible. And so if we're really good at strategy and continue to push that, that's where we can succeed. But there are a lot of scary things that can come out of all these things. Um, Fake news, I think, is like, we don't know what fake news is right now. Deep fake. I mean, there's so many things that can freak you out.
yeah,
So, as a society, we've got to figure those things out and try to keep truth front and center. Um, I heard a really great quote recently. And I think, America especially needs more of this. It's Abraham Lincoln said, when somebody would share an opposing opinion with him, he would say, "I don't like that, but I want to learn more about it." And I was like, man,
that's
wow,
great. Yeah,
holy cow. Like, so I'm trying to have that open mindedness too of, well, I may not agree with that or I may not like it for my personal view. I should absolutely learn more about it instead of just posting an article that only expresses my one viewpoint on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. That's, like, am I really going to win you over with that? As opposed to, if
right,
I can understand, because reality is we're probably closer to agreeing than we aren't. And it would be very healthy for us to understand those. And so as a leader, I believe I need to be very educated on all those things from our team members. So, um, beginning of the pandemic, and then we had some of the racial tension and stuff. And there was a team member of ours that I reached out to, and just his situation was uh, an opportunity for me to learn from. And I just said, "Hey, if you're willing to talk about this, would you?" And he was like, "Absolutely." And so we spent. I think I intended it to be a 5 to 15 minute conversation. We probably spent close to an hour, and I was just like, "Thank you very much." Like, I hope that wasn't hard. Didn't mean to be pressing, but like, I just wanted to learn and get perspective, because I'm from small town Iowa. My perspective is very limited, and I recognize that. And so learning from somebody like that is great. And I like to think that I don't see the world with color, with any bias. I guarantee that I do on some level.
yeah.
So trying to understand maybe the why I do and what subconsciously I'm doing or not doing is important. And we just have to understand opposing views and opposing opinions in order to get to a point where we maybe can have a more open mind to some of those things.
Mm. Okay, good. Okay, let's go on to the next question, shall
Yeah,
we?
sorry. That
This
was
is
a rabbit hole.
good. It's
Sorry.
so good. Okay, what is one question that you or your company like to ask when hiring? Since culture is such a big deal, how do you do this?
Okay, so I only ask one question at this point. I'm typically the final interview. And what I like to ask you is, okay, Andrea, you walk up to your desk every morning, you're working from home or wherever. As you approach your desk and you're walking towards it, what would be the walk up song or entrance song playing in your head every morning? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a kind of a show you're creative,
Yep.
thinking on your feet. And then the other question that we ask is, when we go to offer, is we don't want a yes, we want a hell yes. And it's just a different tone
Love
of,
that.
I
Yeah.
want you to be all in on this. This is a serious decision. Like,
Yeah.
when you say, and so, we're talking to a boomerang, team member. She had left and wants to come back. And I said, "Hey," and she always remembers, she's like, "I always remember you saying, 'Hey, it's gotta be a hell yes.'" And I said, it's got to be capital, all caps this time. All right. And she's like, absolutely no, yes. And so, anyways, those would be kind of the two that I like to present.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so what's your walk-up song then?
Lovely Day.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a nice, like, that's like my everyday song because it's just like a nice pick me up kind of good
Yeah.
mood setter. But like depending on the day, I may need some, a little harsher, like little punchier to like, you gotta go kill some bears that day. I need some hype music that's gonna, get me going. So I would probably have a Rolodex of a bunch depending on the day.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, what is your number one challenge as a CEO looking into 2023?
I mean, I think it's just 23. It's like next year's just gonna be hard. I think it's gonna be hard for a lot of reasons. There's the economy, the pressures of that. That conversation has gotten quieter, but I think it's still there. Um, I think there's growth to be had, so I'm excited about that. It's just gonna be harder. Indecision is a real thing that's silent. Like we don't know when people are not making decisions, so that's a thing. But I would say flipping it, the opportunity for us doing what we do is the last almost 10 years have been pretty easy to, as a digital marketing company, to show positive results for a client. Doesn't mean you were good at it. We're really good at what we do. I want to go to market to potential clients and say, how about we take a look at what you're doing? We'll do a free audit. And we call it a 10 and 10 report. Here's 10 things you're doing well. Here's 10 opportunities you have. I just want them to see our thinking and our amazing team. And it's an opportunity for us to create an efficiency on what they were doing to get a better ROI with the dollars that they are spending, or maybe the fewer dollars that they need to spend in these times to go ahead. So I would just say it's 20. I don't want to be too broad, but 23 is just going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And I think for us, I see opportunity. We grew in 08, 09 when others weren't. I think this is another kind of extension of like, do you want to grow through this, or do you want to kind of let the market control you? And I see growth for us, and I'm excited, and that's the energy that we're going to bring to our team.
Mm. Okay, so do you want to speak any more to how you're going to grow? I mean, is it this audit? So what are your other thoughts on that?
So I mean, our pipeline is building in a really good way with the right fit of client
Uh-huh.
for us. So they're out there, and a lot of them aren't too concerned about the economy.
Yeah.
So that's a really positive thing. But yeah, I mean, I think networking went away for 2 years, and so we've got to reinvent or get active again as much as we can to present those opportunities. So we're doing, I call it 20 bobbers. We've got 20 bobbers in the water of different things we're doing for lead gen for ourselves. It's funny because lead gen for ourselves is way harder than it is for our clients because the CMO of a $500 million company or $1 billion company, they're pretty finicky about what they're going to react to let Marc from Spinutech talk to him about. That door doesn't open very often, but we're putting ourselves in positions to meet those individuals, to encourage conversations and foster those thought leadership podcasts, all
Mhm.
these things we have. It's a wave, a tidal wave of content and outreach to get our name out there and put ourselves in the position to win.
Mm. Okay. What insights or advice do you have for other CEOs who are working to double their revenue?
I think that was an easier equation a couple years ago,
Yeah.
especially 20 hits. And for a lot of businesses, like, holy cow, like, yeah, we had pause and then boom, we took off. And 21 was kind of like, whoa, holy cow, buckle up. And 22 has been a little bit of a turbulent year for a lot of businesses. And so I think it's harder, but I think it's there. I think you've got to, really we're really focused on attracting great clients and great team members, retaining great clients and team members, and growing great team members and clients.
Mm.
That's kind of our approach going forward. And so I think it depends on the industry. Acquisition probably has to be a part of that for a lot of industries. And then it's, for us, it's breaking out what does that path to doubling look like? What's the timeline look like? And for me, I've got to break it down for what's this year, what needs to happen in 23 to make that happen. What are the key wins we have to keep marching towards that, to build that momentum for the growth to be achieved? Because if you have a 5-year goal to double, the hard work starts day one. Like it doesn't like, oh, we're getting close to the finish line. Let's push to get that. mean, you should be able to know you're going to hit that goal in year 3.5. At 3.5 years in, you should be pretty confident that the trajectory is on that right path. So, what are you doing every day, every month to check off activities that are going to get you to do that? Most people don't want to put in that hard work to grow. I love this story from obviously a golf fan. Tom Brady played with Tiger Woods and Phil in the match, the very first one. Charles Barkley comes into the parking lot before the match, and Tom Brady is out there in the rain doing a workout. And Charles Barkley is like, "Tom, what are you doing, man?" And he's like, "Hey, Chuck, I'm just trying to win another Super Bowl." Most people don't want to go out in cold rain before they have to go out for 4 hours and play golf in the cold and rain. They're going to stay in the warmth. But he has a regimen that he knows he has to keep himself in shape to help his team to win that Super Bowl. It's a simple story, but like as leaders, as business owners, whatever position you're in, if you're not willing to do that hard work, yeah, sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're going to get punched in the gut. You gotta keep charging forward and keep your eye on that goal and go forward. And as a leader, I've got to really, again, cast that vision, laser focus, and repetitively pound that into the team, because that attract, retain, grow, that is going to take on its own life with every team member and what it means for themselves, their team, their clients, and so on. And that is a beautiful thing to watch happen organically.
Okay. And building the organizational infrastructure to sustain high growth can be a challenge.
hmm
Obviously, you guys have grown so much. What obstacles have you faced in this process? And what has your company done well in terms of infrastructure?
So, there's always been these like proverbial ceilings that we hit with different growth stages. So I remember like breaking from like to get over 20 people was like the hardest thing for us for some reason. And then we like accelerated to like 35, and then we kind of hovered there for a little bit. We broke through, and then we passed 50 pretty quick. And everybody was saying like, "Oh man, hey Mark, 50 to 75, that there's going to be problems. You're going to have some turbulence, you're going to have problems." We talked about it a lot. We were like, "Hey, be the TSA, see something, say something. We know there's going to be things are going to break in this stage of growth. We know that." We had to start putting in more titles and more leadership and structure for teams. And that change is hard for people. But every step of the way, whether that's 50 to 75 or 150 to 170, or the journey where to get to, wherever we're going to 200 or whatever it is, you have to be agile and adaptive, and processes work until they don't. Right. And if you try to force that process to keep working, then that's a problem. The worst thing, and it's very out there, but a lot of people say this, that's the way we've always done it. Man, we can't say that ever in our organization, because it's broken, it's bad. So we have to be open to change. And as a leader, just not letting your ego get in the way because that was a process you created, or, that was a thing you used to do. I'll say the other thing as a leader is when you're smaller, you build those personal relationships, and then you introduce new layers of leadership. It's hard for those individuals, including myself, to adapt and respect the structure. I just used to go right into Mark's office or virtual office and ask him that question. Now I have to go through three people to do that. What? Like, I know him. And yes, you absolutely should still talk to me. But I'd have to respect that structure as well. And so that tether sometimes can create a problem. But I mean, you just have to recognize when the problem is and attack the problem, not the person, and charge forward.
Okay, so before I ask my last question for you, can you tell us a little bit more about where people can find Spinutech, find you, and what kind of companies should be looking to you for solutions?
Yeah. So spinutech.com, spinutech.com. On LinkedIn, we're very active on a lot of the social channels as well. And then myself, Marc Reifenrath, on LinkedIn. I talk about a lot of the stuff we're talking about very regularly. Love to geek out on AI or digital marketing, culture, core values, all that stuff. Types of companies that we're looking to help. So, anywhere from 100 million to billion plus would be kind of our target market, and really just looking for lead generation. We work with great companies like Public Storage and Paycom, John Deere, Whole Foods, lots of names everybody knows, tons of names that nobody knows, which is totally fine. But if you have a digital marketing, a website problem where you're ultimately looking to get better results, that's where our team is really, really good at. So we drive a lot of leads for our clients that lead them to success. we're getting a lot of kind of annual reporting done for our clients. It's so fun to hear the clients say without being provoked, we've overachieved this year our growth goal. And gang, Spinutech is the reason why. I'm like, man, can we bottle that up and somehow like get that on a billboard or on a digital, that is the greatest compliment we can get and that's true partnership. So, if you're questioning, are you getting what you think you should out of your digital marketing? We're happy to do an audit and kind of see what the opportunities might be. If you're doing something great, we'll tell you. If not, we'll share you what the opportunity could be.
All right, last question for you, Mark. Uh, this is the Voice of Influence podcast. Um, what last piece of advice would you like to give somebody who would like to have or be a voice of influence?
I think honesty it's just not out there enough. I think as leaders, we often try to conform to what we think a leader should be. Be your own leader, be your own self. And if you've got something to say it and share it. It's back to that. Those opinions matter. I don't like it, but I want to learn more about it. And different leadership styles, that's okay. We should all do it a little bit different because that's the personality of who I am. And if it's not authentic, you're not going to be a good leader. So I am who I am. I can't change that. I can work on the rough spots to get those better, but I'm very transparent. I'm very open. I'm excitable. I have a lot of bad ideas and a few good ones, and that's who I am. And so, when people understand me as a leader, they're going to do better too. And I shouldn't try to hide any of that. So be who you are and have a confident voice and share those opinions, knowing that it won't work for everybody. Some of the things I've said today aren't for everybody, but maybe it made one person a little bit better. That's great.
Mm. Well, thank you for being a voice of influence for our listeners today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.